What is up, everybody? Welcome to another edition of Drive for Show, DFS for Dough here on RotoGrinders, talking golf for the upcoming week on the PGA Tour. Happy to have you all with us, either live or on playback as we head toward another golf tournament. Taping on Tuesday this week since we had Monday Night Football last night. So we'll be back in the saddle probably next week with our usual Monday time slot. But that means we've got an extra day. I had an extra day to absorb all the information. It's my partner, Notorious. This is his favorite tournament of the year. So we're just all excited and pent up energy to talk about this tournament. I am Justin Van Zuiden, STL Cardinals 84. Noto, what's going on?
Yeah, I'm excited for this week. John Rahm, got caught on a hot mic at this event last year, calling it a bleep and bleep putting contest. So, I'm excited for the week. And I don't know about you, but do you have a bunch of browsers or tabs open at all times? I just realized I have like 14 RotoGrinders tabs open.
Not a ton. No, I get my OCD kicks in if I get to more than like 8. So right now we're at 9. So I guess I got to close one.
Yeah, mine was to the point where I couldn't even read the writing.
Yeah, see, that's the point where I got to stop.
But yeah, good to be back. My Jaguars moving on to play the Chiefs. Incredible comeback there. I almost turned the game off. I was at a friend's house, so luckily they didn't let me turn it off. But yeah, that was incredible. Good week of golf for DFS, so feeling pretty good.
I wish my Ravens could have had the same fate there, but they decided to chuck away a fumble at the goal line that got returned 100 yards for a touchdown. So that was a backbreaker. And but my wife and I have both officially said that we're rooting for the Jaguars now. So yes. We'll hop on the bandwagon for somebody new to be there. Certainly a uphill climb if they want to get by those other 3 teams in the AFC, but we'll see if they can keep that momentum going this coming Saturday. And you mentioned the golf last week, pretty interesting tournament. And I must say, with a lot of these guys, I know a lot of the top end plays. I mean, it didn't matter who you recommended on the top end last week. Tom Kim didn't do anything, missed the cut. Sung Jae Im missed the cut. And if you went like the top 6 or 8 price guys on DraftKings, I don't think any of them finished inside the top 20. So there were certainly plenty of landmines, but a lot of these guys that finished inside, all these guys finished inside the top 10. Hayden Buckley, Chris Kirk, Andrew Putnam, David Lipsky, Ben Taylor, Matt Kuchar. We brought up all those guys on the show last week, so hopefully you hit with some of those values. Of course, Siwoo Kim had a good Sunday round and ended up taking down the tournament there at 18 under. But was a really interesting week where the optimal lineup in theory left a bunch of salary left on the table, which you don't always see in golf, but variance can certainly rear its head, and it did last week. But I'd like to think that we did a pretty good job, at least, of picking some of these value guys.
Yeah, I thought so too. We were on a lot of the good guys, up there in the top 10. I didn't have any Siwoo, so definitely missed that one. I was kind of saving him for this week because I know he likes Pete Dye courses, and he had won here before, but man, when he gets locked in, he just throws darts at pretty much every pin. But yeah, you mentioned it. I thought we did a pretty good job on the show. Hopefully keep that going. And yeah, Devin says, he usually has 20 tabs open at a time. So he's right there with me.
I can't do 20 tabs. How do you even know which tab is which? By the time you get to 20, if you got RotoGrinders tabs open, all you can see is the little gear logo. So then you gotta click each of the 20 tabs individually. How does having the tabs benefit you at that point? It doesn't benefit you at all.
You have a general idea of, the basketball tabs go here, the golf ones here, lineup HQ at the very end. You got to have a system in place.
That's a pretty flimsy argument, if you ask me. We'll see. I don't think I'm going to get on board with 20. Like I say, 8, maybe 9 if I'm feeling frisky on a particular day. We'll get up to 10, but that's probably about as good as I can get, so I can at least have some idea of what's where. Maybe you open a second set of tabs and you got 10 on each set, then at least you'd know which one is on what set. But another discussion for another day, I suppose. Let's see. Any other takeaways from last week? I mean, other than a lot of the chalk guys missing the cut, I mean, that's, I guess, just going to happen at this time of year. There's some variance in these early events. Guys are knocking off some rust, and Cam Young, Horschel, Im, and Tom Kim, I mentioned. Might have been a few others as well, but just one of those weird weeks.
Yeah, I think there's might be something to, we've heard a lot of quotes of guys changing stuff in the off season, and then they come out and struggle. Horschel was going through swing changes. He said it was fine before last week, but obviously that wasn't the case. We had Patrick Cantlay the week before trying out new driver heads. I think he lost strokes off the tee for the first time in a long time. So pay attention to quotes early in the season. They might have some truth to them. And then as far as other takeaways, Andrew Putnam, top 5 finish. He's been playing great. I think we were both on him last week. Matt Kuchar turning back the clock at a Kuchar course. Our Discord was going crazy on Thursday saying there's no way he's going to make the cut because I think he was 3 over after 3 or 4 holes, but battled back, posed the top 10. Then we got to talk about your boy Jordan Spieth. Pulling the full Keegan, first round leader to miss
That's
cut.
awesome.
What happened?
I don't know. It was definitely entertaining to watch from a perspective of not having any Spieth exposure. I rather enjoyed it, but yeah, I can't believe it. He's not usually that type to implode like that, and it's just and it wasn't necessarily like one big hole either. It was just a bunch of bogeys and some missed putts, and all of a sudden, 6 shots go away. So yeah, it was definitely eye-opening for sure. He is another one of them. In fact, I just did one kind of main lineup last week, and I had a 5 of 6, and Keith Mitchell was the culprit on mine, who was probably the first guy into my lineup. I liked him a lot last week, and he missed the cut as well. So, the names just kind of go on. But really interesting to see what happened with Spieth there. We'll see, if that is a bad omen for him going forward this spring.
I'm a big Spieth fan, but there's something about a train wreck where you just kind of root for it to happen. I was seeing him falling apart there on the back 9, so I had to root for him to miss the cut at that point. But yeah, I think he's going to be fine. I think he's won 2 or 3 Easters in a row, and hey, this year, guess what's on Easter? It's the Masters. So we'll see if that ends up continuing. No other strong takeaways for me other than I'm going to miss the nighttime golf. It's kind of fun sweating lineups right up until bedtime, but I will look forward to, waking up at, 7 in the morning and getting the sweat going right away.
Yeah, it's weird when it doesn't start till midday, throws your routine off a little bit. But we'll get back into the swing of the normal golf routine here this week with the California start time. So you'll be looking at say 7 o'clock Pacific time, about 10 o'clock Eastern time for getting those lineups finalized on Thursday morning. And we've actually had tee times for quite a while. Tee times were released this week on Monday. But as for this tournament, I mentioned it's Noto's favorite. I do say that in jest. Noto does not really like the Pro-Ams. We only have a couple of them, but one of them is this week. And basically what you've got here with the Pro-Am is you've got 3 different courses in play. So the cut will not come until after the 3rd round. And then everybody who makes the cut will play the 4th round on the host course. So you're only going to have shot tracker data on that one main course. So one of the first 3 rounds, and then the final round for everybody who makes it. Everybody's paired with an amateur partner. So the rounds take like 6 hours. And it's just kind of slow and methodical, and the scoring tends to be pretty good. They don't want to use tricky pin positions and placements with amateurs out there on the course, or else that turns a 6-hour round into 7 hours. And there's not a whole lot of weather expected this week either, which means we should see a ton of birdies for this event. So go ahead. We've got the American Express here, 3 courses in play. What do we need to know about the courses here?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, any type of golfer can play well here. There's really not any skill set. You can be a bomber, you can be a shorter hitter. They're all par 72s. The host course, the stadium course, is a Pga design. So if you want to look at that angle, you certainly can. But yeah, they're all going to be easy. Over the last 5 years, they've all been in the top 15 in terms of easiest courses on tour. They all have 4 par 5s. They all have Bermuda greens, but the Bermuda grass is dormant. And they're overseeded with Poa annua, but the Poa annua doesn't play like Poa annua. So I wouldn't put too much stock into putting splits if you are usually somebody that likes to look at that. Basically, you just got to make a lot of birdies. You can get it done in a number of ways. I do think it's going to come down to a putting contest, which, like I said earlier, John Rahm kind of wasn't too happy about last year. Other than that, The importance of 6-6 is a little bit less just because, golfers are going to be getting 3 rounds guaranteed instead of 2. And I don't know. Do you have anything else?
Nope, not really. Yeah, you mentioned it with the guaranteed 3 rounds, so you can afford to take maybe a few more risks. You can be a little creative. This tournament tends to be a bit unpredictable. I look back 15 years, the winning score has been at least 20 under every time. And, it's been slightly different course rotations in there. I know the COVID pandemic threw a little wrench into the usual rotations, and they've taken a few courses in and out, but it tends to be, pretty good scoring conditions. And with the wind not expected this week, there's no reason to expect otherwise. So, yeah, don't be afraid that, again, if you turn it into a putting contest, and Ron was complaining about it, but yeah, here he is again. He's still playing, but we'll see if he's motivated after what he said there last year, and he's certainly been playing pretty well, and that can kind of lead us into our discussion of the top price golfers on the board, of which Ram leads that list. We've talked about over the couple of weeks here that we've been back. The pricing isn't all that strict on DraftKings. We don't have anybody over 11K. We've got 5 golfers above 10K this week with Rahm, Scheffler, Finau, Cantlay, and Xander, who is battling an injury, obviously had to withdraw during his first start of the year. Says he's good to go. He's in the field anyway with that back issue. But obviously there'll probably be people that are very afraid to click that button until we see him out there at full strength. So your thoughts on this 10K group this week?
Yeah, once again, don't love the softer pricing. We talked about last week. You can easily get 10 2K guys or 2 10K guys in your lineups. That would have backfired on you, but you can do it again. You can play Rahm, Cantlay, still have 7,200 left per player. Pretty easy to do. So I don't love it, but it makes your lineups look a lot better. So maybe that's why they are doing it. I wanted to mention one other thing. Last week we talked about the narrative of, so many players played the Tournament of Champions a week before the Sony had won. And we kind of talked about, well, that makes sense because it's the best players in the field. This week I've heard a narrative that if you start on a certain course, you'll have a better chance of winning. I think that's all just noise. What about you?
Yeah, I mean, if there's a weather angle, I buy it. Like if there was one day where there's going to be really high winds, maybe you don't want to play the hardest course that day. But yeah, no credence to me. And a lot of times they stack up the better golfers as kind of all starting on the same course because that's where most of the TV coverage is going to be and stuff. So yeah, I don't buy that either. I think we're calling that one noise as well.
All right. Agreed. So in the 10Ks, it's hard not to like Rahm, obviously coming off the win. It does look like he's going to be pretty popular. People generally shy away from the guy that won the week before or the event before. But with Rahm, I think you can kind of throw that out. I mean, he's won 3 times in his last 5 starts. And after those wins, he finished 4th and 8th. So Rahm makes a lot of sense. I also like Cantlay. Cantlay quite a bit. 3 for 3 year, all in the top 9. He's a guy that tends to play well in California. And if anybody doesn't mind some slow golf, it's going to be Patrick Cantlay, one of the slower golfers on the PGA Tour. So he's going to be right in his wheelhouse. I don't mind Scheffler, but the putter's been off. Don't mind Finau, but I like him a little bit better on tougher courses. And then you mentioned the injury risk with Xander. I just don't think you need to take that unless you're playing 100 lineups.
Yeah, definitely not going crazy with Xander this week. The ownership is somewhat appealing, but it's not like these other guys are massive chalk. So I'm probably out on him just from that perspective. I think I like Rahm and Cantlay as my favorites. I think Cantlay's probably your safe pick. Do like Rahm, given the fact that the salary is pretty soft. And you can certainly play him in cash games as well. So I think the next range is where things really get interesting because you've got Sung J M coming off a miscut. You've got Zalatoris, who we haven't seen as much during the fall. He was a little bit injured. We've got Tom Kim coming off a miscut. Harman has been playing well, but now his price is all the way up to 9,300. Siwoo Kim coming off a win. Nobody's going to want to play. Cam Young coming off a rough week. So, really interesting options here in the 9K range. I think Zalatoris is probably my favorite. Again, we mentioned they set this up with easier pins. I don't think that his putting issues will affect him as much this week. And he's obviously a great ball striker, and I think he won't mind and get bothered by the Pro-Am format either. So give me Zalatoris as my favorite in the 9K range. I don't mind the bounce back theory from Sungjae or Tom Kim if you want to go there. But your thoughts on this next group?
Yeah, don't mind the Willie Z call one bit. You mentioned Sungjae. The ball striking numbers weren't very good last week, but 4 straight top 12s here. So certainly an event that he likes. Tom Kim did have some great ball striking numbers last week. I think he gained 4.3 strokes tee to green and then he lost 6.7 strokes putting. So probably not going to happen again if you do want to go back to Tom Kim. My favorite's going to be Cam Young at 9,100. He doesn't have a lot of events where he has course history, and this is one of them. He finished T40 here last year. He's obviously a much better golfer now than he has been in the past. He's a bomber, should be able to take advantage of those 4 par 5s on every single course. And this feels like a win is coming soon, and I kind of want to be there when it happens. Going to be off of Burns, going to be off of Siwoo, and I'm probably going to be off of Aaron Wise, although Wise has turned into one of the better putters on the PGA Tour, which is kind of crazy for a guy that we've always thought of as a good ball striker.
Yeah, he's definitely turned a corner and, showing a better all-around game now than he did maybe a few years back. So good to see for those that have hitched themselves to that bandwagon over the years. That's it's paying off now. With Aaron Wise, kind of mentioned my favorites in there with Zalatoris, and I don't mind Harmon at 9,300 as well, with the fact that I think maybe he'll be a little bit lower owned this week, given that price tag. Comparatively, he's a little easier to fit on FanDuel if you're playing over there. But interesting options in this range to give you some GPP ceiling, like the Cam Young call as well. All right, let's go ahead and go down just a little bit further. Taylor Montgomery continues to play well. Faded just a bit on the weekend last week, but still made 21 birdies. Finished tied 12th. Putnam, we mentioned, had a really strong week. Despite me correctly calling TCU getting absolutely blasted in the college football championship game. Shout out to myself for the pick on that one. Tom Hoagie still made the cut after flying back to Hawaii. Didn't necessarily play as well as he has been playing, but he still stuck around for the weekend, which I think is a pretty good testament after, I'm sure, being a little bummed and having a lot of travel last week after that game. And you got Cam Davis, Theegala, Adam Hadwin, JT Poston. Poston actually was pretty popular. I didn't see that coming last week, but ended up being really popular, especially in the higher dollar contests. He's at 8,000. Thoughts on some of these mid-range guys?
Well, as far as Poston goes, he was popular because he played the week before. Everyone ran with the narrative. Like Mackenzie Hughes was pretty popular too. But yeah, I mean, Poston's a guy that I like on these easier courses, so I don't mind looking there. This is one of those ranges where you could build out a lineup with 6 of them and feel pretty good about it. If it's going to be a putting contest, hard not to like Taylor Montgomery and Andrew Putnam. Putnam's gone 17 straight events without missing a cut. He has 5 straight top 35s here and coming off of a top 5 last week. So Putnam's going to be my favorite in the range, but I also bet Theegala. He's a guy that's from Chino Hills. I think he went to college in California as well. And he's had 3 runner-up finishes in 2022, so kind of expect him to break out here soon. Adam Hadwin, another course history guy, 7 for 7 here with 4 top 6 finishes. The last time we saw him was in Houston, and he gained 10 strokes ball striking, so if he can continue that, got to like his chances. And you mentioned Hoagie. I'm a little worried about fatigue. I mean, so much travel. So went to Hawaii, then came back, then went back to Hawaii, and now came back all in the span of 2 weeks. Does that worry you at all? He's a great course fit. I just worry a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't play him last week because of it, and he did all right. But yes, I would think that much travel and the time zone changes. I mean, Hawaii is like 4 hours, 5 hours from U.S. Eastern time, so. With it being that quick in succession, just feels like it's got to catch up with you at some point. But especially, the older you get, the harder it is to navigate those time changes. And yeah, it does worry me. I mean, he does, based on the way he's been playing, I mean, that price tag isn't too bad, but I do agree with the concern. I think I like Tigala better.
Yeah, I do too. Question from Mr. Gerg in the chat. Should Cam Young really be double the ownership of Harman and Burns and 4 times the ownership of Si Woo? It's a good question. I mean, Harman's a great course fit. I do like that pivot in that range, but generally, when it comes to guys above 9K, I'll just play my favorites regardless of ownership and then kind of go from there, especially if you're talking about single entry tournaments or small field tournaments. That's kind of the way I've always approached it, is I can differentiate from the chalk down low and play my favorites up top. But it's certainly an interesting question.
Yeah, it does. If you really want to play the ownership game, given the amount of options that we have in here, I don't mind going with some of the lower owned plays. I think that makes some sense, but nothing that is, absolutely mandatory that you have to do it one way or the other. So all depends on your personal preference for how you want to build those GPP lineups. And I kind of generally agree with Noto that differentiating your lineup on the lower end, where there tends to be a little more variance, makes sense. Now, granted, last week it was all the high-end guys that really struggled, but it's part of what makes golf a fickle sport sometimes, part of what makes it fun too.
Yeah, and to his question, I mean, this might be the week where you want to kind of play the ownership game just because the 3-course rotation, the Pro-Am format, all that brings in more variance, I think. So, yeah.
That's why you love the tournament so much, right?
I mean, I like this better than no cuts. So anytime we get the Friday cut sweat, I think it's a fine tournament, but we don't have shot tracker for 2 of the 3. I mean, shot tracker and a cut, that's really all I ask for in my life.
You're simple man, yeah. Right? You're not asking for too much here. Well, you're getting the cut, but not until 3 rounds, and you're only getting a partial shot tracker this week. So no full on love for you, but it's better than nothing, I guess. All right. Anything else above 8K here?
Cage Lee's been playing great. What are you doing with him?
Yeah, I don't know. I've kind of missed that boat, and I hate jumping on at the tail end, but yeah, hard to argue with the results. I mean, he hasn't missed a cut. The fall swing, perfect 6 for 6. A couple top 10s in there as well. Probably out, but that's mainly just being stubborn as opposed to not liking him because of the numbers.
Yep, same boat.
So play KH Lee. That's what we're telling you. All right, let's move into the 7Ks. I believe I saw some Jason Day references in your stuff as I was reading through it before the show. We've got Ricky Fowler. I mean, it's the veterans unite here in the upper part of the 7K range. What are you looking at in here?
Well, Ricky Fowler apparently has a new swing. Everybody's been gushing over it on Twitter, so something to keep in mind. But if it's going to be his first tournament with the new swing, I'll wait until he posts like a top 60, and then I'll be back in on Ricky. But I do like Jason Day quite a bit. So we talked about his health a lot during the swing season, and he rattled off 4 straight top 25 finishes. I think he gained 20 strokes tee to green during that stretch. He has a really good track record at the AT&T Pebble Beach Pro-Am, and he's only played this one once. Last year it was T49, but the fact that he does have so much experience in the Pro-Am type of format, I like quite a bit. I like that he's striking the ball a lot better. After that, it kind of dips off a little for me. Like, I love the 8K range and then don't like a lot until we get to the lower 7s. Anyone that you want to bring up?
Yeah, I mean, it does kind of dip. I think there's some kind of risk reward upside in here. I mean, if you want to try Mitchell again, not a lot of people are going to play him this week. Davis Raleigh's pretty hit or miss. The guy I think I like in here the most is your boy, Patrick Rogers. Went to school at Stanford, pretty comfortable playing at this type of course. And you look at the fall swing, 54th, 28th, 16th, 3rd, 27th, 16th, 10th to close that out. So a little more consistency than what we usually see from him. Hopefully that is a sign of things to come. So yeah, GPPs at 7,700. I think Rogers is my guy in the upper part of the 7K range.
Yeah, I like that call. I've gone back and forth on him. Back to my shot tracker, tilt. we don't have his shot link data for, I think, 3 or 4 of those events where he played great. So I don't know if he got it all done on the greens or if he, was a good ball striker. I just like to
No,
know
it's
that kind of
fantastic ball striking, like plus 40 strokes.
stuff. Okay, well,
He's good.
you calculated it yourself. You followed him around. But yeah, anytime he's in Cali, I'm usually on board. So I like the call, but I do wish we had some idea of where he was gaining all those strokes.
Yeah. All right, you mentioned liking a few options in the lower part of the 7K range. You got Todd, who we talked about last week. Chris Kirk coming off a third place finish. His price never moves. Lipsky, another guy. Ben Griffin, another guy. I mean, lots of guys down here that played well last week too. So, who are you liking out of this group?
7,400, really like Will Gordon. He's one of those guys you can guarantee he'll be 8 under par at least one of the rounds. He'll probably blow it away like he did last week on another round, but he's got the potential to go extremely low. He's been playing great during the swing season. Makes a ton of birdies, so I think he makes a lot of sense. I like Ben Griffin and Ben Taylor. My model's just been telling me to play them every single week for the last 4 months, and I never listened. So maybe I'll listen this week. Taylor actually rates out as the 20th best play in the entire field. So we'll see what happens there. Granted, the sample size with him is pretty small on the PGA Tour, but still, he's been playing good, top 5 last week. I like Neesmith as kind of a contrarian play in this range. One of the better iron players in the field, and he had 3 top 10s during the swing season. And then Grayson Sigg has just been steady. He doesn't do anything great, doesn't do anything poorly. He's made 8 straight cuts and top 25 here last year. So he seems like one of the safer guys down here in the 7Ks.
Yeah, definitely. I think, Kirk is very safe. I think he's very safe. I like the Taylor call. Put him in my article as well. Just he should be a little bit pricier with the numbers that he's been putting up. So we're pretty much in agreement, I think, on this range. Will Gordon, I've talked about Will Gordon pretty much every event during the fall swing, and I said I was going to keep playing him until he let me down. Unfortunately, he was on my single lineup last week, and that Sunday round torpedoed quite a bit of cash for me, but still ended up finishing inside the top 30, had 82.5 DK points. So it was still a pretty good week, but it was disappointing to see him fall. He was in tied 5th at the start of the day, and then fell way back there with a tough round on Sunday. So like you mentioned, he's always a risk reward showdown play because he's going to go 8 under and then 5 over. But this is the type of course setup where, there's probably not going to be too many 5-6 over par rounds this week. So I do think that sets up well for him also.
What about Yeager?
I brought him up last week and he did well again. He was definitely up there. So yeah, another guy that if you need a value play down here that I don't mind.
Yeah, I don't mind him. SH Kim continues to play well. Don't mind him. He's never played this event before, but this I was looking at course history, the predictiveness of it here, and it just hasn't been needed. So throw out course history for the most part, except for the guys that play here every year.
Yeah, I don't think it matters all that. Like Adam Hadwin's another guy we didn't really talk about. He's got really good course history as well. I like him in GPPs at 8,200. So he would be another kind of, if you're following the course history angle, I think you can play some of him this week, though his stats have been really strange. He's been terrible off the tee but still good on approach of late, Hadwin. So a little bit of noise, I think, in his stats. Take it with a bit of a grain of salt. But if you're playing the course history angle, don't mind him. So lots of options here that we've talked about kind of in this 71, 72, 7,300 range, almost just like last week where it's fairly soft, but then once you get below 7,000, there's really not much left, even though it's 156 golfers in the field this week. Just surprising that there's just nothing.
Yeah, very little.
AKA nothing.
Yeah, I mean, the model doesn't mind. Eric Cole, I brought him up last week. I didn't know who he was. Made the cut, didn't do much else. After that, nothing that I really, Ryan Armour, once again, I think he missed the cut on the number last week. Yeah, it's pretty ugly. I mean, you don't really need to dip down here. Usually you do it so that you can play the studs at the top, but the pricing's so soft that you don't need to.
Yeah, it's just not necessary with only 5 golfers above 10K, nobody above 11K, and then all those sorts of value guys. You could finish your lineup off with 2 or 3 guys in that 7 to 7,500 range, and still feel pretty good about it. Let's see. I feel like there was somebody else I was going to bring up in here, but now I can't find who it was. There's just not a whole lot. And I think, I might end up, I rarely do this. Usually I'll find 1 or 2 guys, but I might end up Xing out the entire 6,900 and below range this week, just because I don't necessarily think that there's anybody you have to have. Michael Thompson, I suppose, he had 4 sub 70 rounds last week, so every round under par. Davis Thompson projects okay, but again, just get it. Those guys are at 6,900, so just get the extra couple $100, I think, to move up into the 7Ks if you need something down here.
Yeah, and if you have trouble narrowing down your player pool, when you're in lineup HQ, 89 golfers in the 6K range, so that'll bring it down to what, 70, 60, something like that.
Yeah,
so.
Just erase that whole range. And, let's see, 156. How many did you say there were? 89.
89.
That leaves you with 67, if my math is correct.
So yeah, that does have to work for you, and then you just X out a couple guys you don't like.
Well, again, it goes back to my theory. You don't want to try to play 40 guys, so don't just X out those 80 golfers and then play everybody else. Still got to narrow it down some, but I don't know. Is this just a product of the time of year? Is this a product of the guys that have left for the Live Tour that makes the bottom part of these fields so weak? Is it a pricing thing with DFS? Like, I feel like there used to be a time where at least we could say, hey, here's this guy at 65, 67, 6,800 that you can, at least feel good about potentially having some upside. But now it's almost the same refrain every week.
Yeah, and for whatever reason, it doesn't seem like there's any web.com graduates from last year into this year, or from last season into this season that really pop. Maybe that has something to do with it. I mean, I remember last year we were targeting, a lot of guys that, just graduated. So, I'm not sure what it is really. It might be the time of year, but we have a lot of good golfers in the field. So I'm not sure.
Yeah, there's more higher end golfers playing this week than you would expect for a Pro-Am tournament. It'll be interesting to see how this works when we get to the players and stuff. Like, when we get to the Players Championship, there's a lot of times where you would get golfers around 8,000 that you felt, legitimately had a chance to win. And some of these guys that have gone to, Live Tour, like Neiman or something like that, like those are the players that are going to be missing. And we'll see how that impacts the DFS pricing when it comes to the bigger events. But it'll be interesting to see. But as for this week, I just think, going into that 6Ks, I think somebody tagged up, maybe Sobel wrote up Carl Yuan as a potential punt, but not something that's grabbing me this week either. So I don't know. I just thought it was interesting to see how whether it's live or DFS pricing or strength of field. For what it's worth, if you do want to take a chance on Yuan, he was 35th, 39th, and then 21st his last 3 events, made 22 birdies last week. So, but again, it's not like he's that much cheaper than these 7K guys. He's at 6.9K. So, anything else from your end before we duck out of here for this week?
I think it's a good week to do the two $10,000 golfers, especially because they all burned everyone last week, so everyone's going to be looking towards the balanced build. And you can make Rahm Cantlay, Rahm Finau, Rahm Scheffler lineups and surround them with some pretty good golfers. So I kind of like doing that in tournaments this week.
Yeah, get those 7K golfers rounded out, and you got a pretty good looking stars and scrubs lineup there, even without using a lot of golfers or any golfers in that 6K range. So, all right, that'll do it for this week. Next week, we've got the Farmers Insurance Open. So that's at Torrey Pines, another event where they use 2 courses. And then we've got the other Pro-Am at Pebble Beach. So 2 more weeks where Noto is going to be disappointed with no full shot tracker and another Pro-Am until we get to the Waste Management Phoenix Open the second week of February. And now I know why Noto likes that event so much, because that means we're finally through the crummy events with the split courses and the pro-ams. We get through that here by the middle of February. So that's what's coming up. The usual tournaments on the PGA Tour schedule, and should be a lot of fun to break those down as well. So we'll see you back here next week for the Farmers Insurance Open. Thanks to Noto for joining me. Thanks to our producer Devin for working hard for us behind the scenes on a Tuesday night. We wish you all the best of luck as you build your lineups, and leave a thumbs up on the video. Appreciate that very much. Have a good week, everybody. We'll see you back here next week. Take care.